HBO's The Undoing really rocked us to our cores, didn't it? I mean, it made us hate Hugh Grant. How is that possible? But that's just a testament to how captivating The Undoing ended up being, with a mystery that threw more red herrings at us than an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet. For 6 episodes, we watched Nicole Kidman's Grace grapple with a horrible crime that her husband may or may not have committed, only to discover that, big spoiler alert here, yes, her horrible, manipulative, sociopath husband was actually a horrible, manipulative, sociopath murderer. The twist was that there was no twist. Though now that it's over, we can discuss all the little things about the show that you may have missed or might just find interesting. Will there be a season 2? What were some of the wildest theories? And where did Grace get her fabulous coats? All that and more coming your way right now. The Undoing was billed as a miniseries, but come on, when has that ever stopped a television show from continuing? If the show is insanely popular, then of course producers are going to find a way to keep it going. So does that mean we're going to see The Undoing Season 2? What would that be called? The Undone? The Undoing 2, Undoing Harder? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the show will continue. Nicole Kidman has spoken in the past about how much she liked how The Undoing was an open and shut case. So, sorry fans, no more watching rich New Yorkers squirm. There have been a lot of questions and theories swirling around The Undoing's dreamy opening title sequence. And if that voice singing sounded familiar, well, you're not imagining things. Yes, that is Nicole Kidman herself singing that hypnotic, admittedly slightly creepy version of Dream a Little Dream of Me.
Night breezes seem to whisper, I love you.
The way she tells it, the director called her up and told her she had to sing it, and Nicole agreed. Though she said that filming in a basement and having a famous musician husband certainly made things a little nerve-wracking. But that's cool she sang it. I now want every show to have their main star sing the opening theme song. Just think about that for a second. Yes, I know it's 2020 and who has time to read things anymore when there's literally 1,000 streaming services to choose from? Like, do I want to read a book or just watch The Office again? Yeah, I'm gonna pick The Office every time. Okay, maybe you're more sophisticated than I am and read more than me, and if you're an avid reader, you might know that The Undoing is based on the book You Should Have Known, written by Jean Hanff Korelitz. And really, they changed the name from You Should Have Known, which is mysterious and captivating, to The Undoing, which sounds like it could be about anything? See, this is what I get for learning about literature. It just makes me mad. So up until the end of The Undoing, there was a lot of theories about what happened to Elena. Although Jonathan was the clear suspect, we the audience were convinced other things were going on. We knew Jonathan was an awful person and a true monster in his behavior, but sorta believed he didn't actually kill Elena. The book that it's based on, though, takes a very different approach. For one, Jonathan doesn't actually appear in the book, and it's quite clear he's the murderer from the start. He's on the run for the book's entirety as we see everything from Grace's perspective as she grapples with what her husband turned out to be. And if your favorite part was the court scenes, then I just got some bad news for you. There's no trial in the book, since Jonathan is not captured until the very end. Nudity for any actor or actress must be an incredible challenge. To open yourself up like that to millions of people takes serious guts and commitment. And if you've seen The Undoing, you know that Matilda de Angelis, who plays Elena, had to perform her share of nudity for the part. And given that this was her first American role, did that bother her? Actually, no. Angelis gave a very candid and honest answer when asked about nudity, saying that she worked hard with a coach years ago to help her overcome that sense of awkwardness when performing. And now she says that you start thinking about nudity and about your body as a tool to express yourself and express emotions, suddenly nudity is not that big a deal anymore. I mean, that's great for her, but I like pasta and cheesecake way too much, so I'm not taking my shirt off anytime soon. Nicole Kidman in a miniseries about peeling back the layers of rich socialites' lives to reveal a darker, ugly truth. Why does that sound so familiar? Oh, right. Because besides The Undoing, Nicole Kidman also starred in the miniseries Big Little Lies, which had a sorta similar premise. And both of these miniseries were created by David E. Kelley, so that's another connection right there. Though Big Little Lies rather infamously won all the Emmys for limited series, but then turned around and made a season 2, making it not a miniseries anymore. Could we see something similar happen with The Undoing? Who knows, maybe. One of the best things a miniseries can do is have one director for all of it. That ensures that the tone and feel between episodes stays the same throughout. It's hard to keep one director when it's a full season of television, but having only 6 or 8 episodes definitely lightens the load. So special kudos to Suzanne Bier, who directed all of The Undoing and was an executive producer. And trust me, you're gonna want to learn her name if you haven't already. Bier directed Netflix's recent smash hit Bird Box, as well as won an Emmy for directing a different miniseries called The Night Manager, starring Tom Hiddleston. Her star only continues to rise, and I wouldn't be surprised if a big franchise comes knocking on her door any day now. While The Undoing was often a dark and traumatic show, there was still a lot of fun jokes to be made. As viewers watched week to week, one of the standout elements people liked to latch onto was the fashion, especially when it came to Grace. People could not get enough of her fabulous coats that she would wear throughout the show on her many walks. But besides just being fun pieces of fashion, the coats Grace wore throughout the series were highly symbolic, according to Nicole Kidman. She said that her wardrobe was chosen in that particular manner because it protects her and her identity. It's her barrier and shield from the world that also envelops her. Sure, Nicole. I may not understand all of that, but I do know you rock those coats. Can you believe we almost had The Undoing in our lives much earlier? We could have been talking about this months ago. The show premiered at the end of October, but it was actually supposed to air way back in May. But of course, like many TV and film productions, the show had to be postponed due to COVID. And maybe that was for the best. If this aired during the summer, we all might have still been obsessed with the trashy fun Tiger King instead of being obsessed with this trashy prestige series. Come on, you know it's true. The Undoing was a murder mystery. At least it sort of was. The show basically told us who did it right away, but then made us question who else could have done the horrendous crime besides Jonathan. And doesn't it seem like they were setting up Grace's friend Sylvia to be the killer, or was that just me? Think about it. There was that whole scene with Jonathan telling his lawyer that he had one other affair in the past, with his lawyer asking for her name, but then cutting away before that was revealed. What was the point of that if that didn't mean anything? Pair that with the fact that Sylvia and Jonathan were apparently close, with Sylvia helping with his past legal predicament, and audiences quickly connected the dots. Be honest, it totally makes sense, right? And that's not the only theory surrounding the show. There were tons everywhere, and a lot of them got pretty wild. My personal favorite was the rumblings that Sylvia and Franklin were actually not only in on the murder together, teaming up for both their benefits, meaning Sylvia wanted revenge for the affair and Franklin wanted Jonathan out of Grace's life, but also that the two might have been father and daughter? Now that would have been a crazy twist. And you know what? I'll say it, that sort of crazy left turn would have been better than the ending we got. Do you agree or disagree? Nicole Kidman and Donald Look at Those Eyebrows Sutherland played father and daughter in The Undoing. And man, did you buy their relationship or what? You could tell Donald, seriously, those eyebrows are scary, Sutherland really loved his daughter and would do anything to protect her. And here's a fun fact, that's not the first time the two have played father and daughter. This was a mini reunion of sorts, as Nicole Kidman and Donald Have I Mentioned His Eyebrows Enough Sutherland starred in Cold Mountain back in the early 2000s. You think they talked about that on the set of The Undoing? I know I would. You know what I think needs to be cleared up? All that legal talk that was pivotal to the case. When Grace took the stand to totally tighten the noose around Jonathan, there was a lot of shouting from the defense saying her testimony was hearsay, while the prosecution stood firm saying it was a statement against interest. What that means is this: hearsay is a statement other than one made by the witness offered in evidence to prove the truth of the matter. A statement against interest is used to counteract that when the person who made the statement is unavailable in some way. And since Jonathan's mother seemed very much available, the whole thing rubbed a lot of real lawyers the wrong way. In actuality, it seems like Grace should have never been able to say what she said, but hey, then we wouldn't have a show. One of the best things about The Undoing had to be the atmosphere. We really got a sense of New York as a city, mainly because Grace wouldn't stop walking everywhere. Seriously, it seems like every other scene was Grace out walking. Even when Jonathan was on trial, the two would be seen quite frequently walking around New York together like they weren't the two most famous people in the city at that moment. But the scenery was supposed to look a little differently at one point. The show had requested to film in Shelter Island, which is on the eastern end of Long Island, but the exclusive enclave straight up denied their permission to shoot there. The powers that be thought that shooting would upend the peaceful little area and turn them away. How do you say no to Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman? If Jonathan's mom looked familiar when she popped up on Grace's Skype screen, there's a reason for that. It was Rosemary Harris, who nowadays is probably best known for playing the OG Aunt May back in Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man trilogy. And I'll tell ya, it took me a second to recognize her, but there was something about her voice and demeanor that seemed so soothing yet confident that it didn't take long for things to click. Good for you, Aunt May. Take those small, easy cameo roles and knock them out of the park. The creator of the show is David E. Kelley, and if you're a fan of his work, chances are you like law dramas. This prolific creator has worked on such law hits like LA Law, The Practice, Ally McBeal, and Boston Legal. The guy really likes the law. And that makes sense. Before he transitioned into Hollywood, he was an attorney himself, so he knows a thing or two about courtrooms. Sure, maybe when it comes to things like The Undoing, the court scenes aren't always tremendously accurate, but at least they're entertaining. And I'll be honest, I'd rather be entertained by fiction than bored by true law procedure, wouldn't you? The key to the whole series was always Elena, played by Matilda de Angelis. Her part may not have had the deepest characterization beyond a tragic, beautiful young woman, but her brief scenes really stood out, and that falls on Angelis' shoulders. And you may not recognize her in the United States, but is it really a surprise that the actress is a big star in her home country of Italy? She's been nominated for 2 David Di Donatello Awards, which is basically the Italian equivalent of the Oscars. And this was her very first American role, though you can expect she's going to be a much bigger presence here after her scene-stealing performance. Something that a few people picked up on while watching The Undoing is how people tended to falter a bit in hiding their true accents. Nicole Kidman is obviously the star, but she's an Australian playing an American character, and her native accent slipped through sometimes. And when it comes to other characters, all 3 attorneys we saw on the show were also hiding accents. With Sophie Grable, who played the prosecutor Catherine Stamper, hid her Dutch accent for the part, while Noma Dumezweni and Douglas Hodge, who played Haley and the Badger respectively, both hid their British accents. To keep the theme going, I really think Hugh Grant should have played a Texan. I think that would have been a lot of fun. If one thing was made clear during The Undoing was that Franklin was seriously loaded. Like, he would be the type of guy who drops a $100 bill on the street but then doesn't go back for it because he doesn't want to bend over. So naturally the question came up of what exactly Franklin did for a living to earn such cash. Well, that may not have been answered directly, but one thing of note fans have noticed is how much time Franklin spends at the museum. He clearly loves art, but could he possibly own that museum? Seems plausible. That would have made even more sense if he ended up killing Elena somehow. She was an artist and he owns a museum. Sounds like a possible missed opportunity. When Nicole Kidman was working on developing this project with producers, she was actually a little unsure about asking Hugh Grant to play the role of Jonathan. She wasn't convinced he would actually say yes to the part because it was so different than what Grant usually says yes to. Thankfully for all of us, he did accept and gave us one of the worst human beings we've seen on TV in a while. Hugh Grant may have been playing a monster in human skin on The Undoing, but in real life, he was still the same old charming Hugh Grant we've come to know and love. In an interview, Grant, with his usual wit and charm, said he only took the role in The Undoing to have some time away from his exhausting young kids. But then he said while he was filming, he discovered he missed them terribly and would often tear up and cry sometimes when he realized how much he missed them. He said he would sometimes go to a cafe, order a cup of coffee, and then just break down in tears. And man, how crazy would that have been if you were a cashier and a crying Hugh Grant came up to you? Franklin's apartment seemed like a massive penthouse with too much extra space, but it did a great job in establishing just how rich someone like Franklin actually was. Here's a fun fact: his apartment was actually 3 different locations all mashed together as one. So if it looked like 3 separate penthouse apartments, that's because it was. Thanks to its star power and word of mouth, The Undoing was a major hit ratings-wise, especially overseas. In the UK, the Comcast-owned Sky Atlantic, which airs the drama, has reported that the drama is the network's highest-rated new US import ever, with the pilot episode pulling an audience even bigger than the pilot episode of Game of Thrones back in the day. Hey, maybe people just wanted a nice, juicy law thriller. Maybe they wanted to hear Nicole Kidman sing. Or maybe they just wanted to see if Hugh Grant could really play an outright villain. And guess what? He could. Fans of Gossip Girl, yes, we're everywhere, just accept it, may have recognized the Riron School entrance as the same entrance for the Constance Billiard School for Girls. Yep, this building, located in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, is actually a fancy mansion that was built back in 1918. I guess there's something about it that just screams fancy snobbish school, as it's been used also in the 3rd season of The Sinner, as well as in Gotham Season 4. And with the Gossip Girl reboot on the way, we might see that courtyard again very soon. Although The Undoing was billed as a two-hander between Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant, there was really a third person in the mix. Noah Jupe played Henry, the Fraser's son, and the kid was a real bright standout overall. We go from liking him, to hating him, to liking him again, to suspecting him a little bit, and then fearing for his safety as we evaluate just how much therapy this kid's gonna have to go through in order to get the memory of his dad talking about fried clams out of his head. It's safe to say that he's a rising star. He's probably most recognizable as one of the Abbott kids in the Quiet Place franchise, as well as the pivotal role of Peter Miles in Ford v Ferrari. Yeah, definitely learn this kid's name because he's about to be everywhere. What did you think of The Undoing's finale? Did you like it or find it a bit anticlimactic? Let us know in the comments below and be sure to hit that big like and subscribe button for more awesome TV content like this. Thanks for watching Screen Rant. See you next time.